Now for the moment of truth to see if all these sprinklers are working. So I need to get my irrigation system on so I can water in some of the stuff that I'm going to be applying here in the upcoming weeks. The freezing temperatures look to be over, hopefully, and so it's time to get that thing running, make sure everything is working correctly. I also got a few questions about my system, what I like about it, any sort of comments that I want to give to any of you putting in a system and maybe using the controller that I'm using, so we'll talk about that too. Here we are down in the basement. So I had my sort of drain system open here. I can close that. So I have my main water line coming in here, and then it's teed off so that I have my second irrigation meter right here. Just gonna take a picture of what I'm starting at here for the season. Okay, so that water line to this meter is already open, so I just need to turn on this main one right here. Everything outside is still turned off as far as valves go. This is the main water line coming out of my house, and I have the backflow piece taken out of here so that I can empty some water out of this. Alright, here we go. This one over here, something's up with that. Well, so far so good. One section left to test, so I have 4 zones. If you want to see sort of my irrigation system and the way that it's set up, then I have a video from last year when I did this in June. Everything got torn up. I had to do a lot of renovation work in the fall, which also I have videos on if you'd like to see how I got it back to sort of what it looks like right now. So I'm going to test this final zone here, and then I'll kind of go through my system and what I think about it. Alright, cool. So everything is working as of now. Of course, I need to test the system, run it for longer periods of time, make sure there's no leaks that show up that I can find. It's one of the difficult things is, since everything is underground, you're sort of just hoping that everything is working, but you should just continue to watch some spots and see if anything pops up that looks weird, and then continue to watch your sprinklers and make sure everything's set correctly so that you're getting good head-to-head coverage. And you should be good to go. I'm going to check my valve boxes just to make sure everything looks good in terms of those, and I'm not seeing any leaks in there. So let's talk about the system that I have, some of the things that I've learned since I put it in, and some of the things that you might want to pay attention to. if you're putting in a system. So I've got the Hunter hydrawise system, and to be honest with you, I've not nearly used it really to its potential at this point. So I don't really set a weekly schedule or go off of any of that, because unfortunately I would love to say that our weather is consistent enough, even though I know some of these controllers do look at the weather and they do decide whether it rained and whether they should apply. I just personally like to do everything on my own. So usually what I do when I want to water is I just manually set it the night before to come on at about 4 or 5 a.m. It just depends on what zones I'm doing, and I don't do every zone every time. Sometimes I just need one. Sort of, it just depends, because the north side of my house does not get nearly the sun that this side yard does, or that sometimes the front does. So it's just sort of learning your system and customizing it yourself if you want to. Of course, you can go through some of these systems and set them up so that it sort of does a smart way of figuring out when it needs to water. And one thing that I would really like to add to the system is an actual moisture sensor. I may try to figure that out yet this year. We'll see. Otherwise, for sure, down the road, if I move to a different property and put in some different systems and things like that, I'm going to be doing a lot more with moisture sensing, because that's one area that can really help you to decide when to water, decide when you don't need to water. So I'm going to be working on that for sure. So I guess you would just say, in terms of smart controllers, I'm probably not the person to ask, because I'm not really utilizing them to their full potential. What I do love about this though is that I do have the Wi-Fi control, and that was really all I was looking for. I wasn't really looking for a system that would necessarily read the forecast and figure out all of that stuff. I mean, some people are gone more than I am. I'm home every day working here, so I can be very consistent on looking at my yard, taking a gauge of when it actually needs something and doing it that way. Now, I know there's many of you who are not in that scenario. You might be traveling more. You might be just not really able to look at the actual yard every day very consistently. And so I think those are good options for many of you, but for me, I can just do a lot more manual control, and I'm fine with that. Knowing what I know now, I probably would have tried to push to get another set of sprinklers on the other side closest to the street. I don't know really if companies do that, or if there's some sort of risk of doing that since it's so close to the road. I honestly don't know for sure. But that way I could have had sort of a triangle. So right now they're just spraying one direction, and even though they're overlapping each other, they're really designed to be in sort of a triangle design, or overlapping with 3 sprinklers. So what I have noticed when I was doing my seeding projects is that coverage over on those sections is not completely perfect. There's some spots where it gets more water, and then spots where there's dry spots, and so if I could change anything, I would have done that differently, and I probably still could change it if I wanted to and dig something up. But at this point, I'm home again most of the time that I can see some dry spots and water those by hand if I really need to. At least for the most part, there's at least water coverage. Some of it gets a little heavier and some gets lighter, but there is still water coverage on that area as a whole. It's just that I wish it was a bit more consistent. Other than that, at this point, I guess I would say it's been useful for me to have, especially with renovations. It's absolutely awesome to have a system for that. Otherwise though, everything's working correctly right now. If you have questions, let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.